I seriously didn't know that things got this bad for this Rachel Zegler Snow White movie, but I'm reading this right now, and I'm worried about Rachel Zegler's career. I don't see how she comes back.
There are empty theaters all around the country. We are now at a 1 out of 10 on IMDb for the new Snow White, and it couldn't happen to a better person.
She doesn't need a prince to save her, and not surrounded by 7 weird people. Oh, okay, just CGI fictional goblins, I guess.
She's now bragging about the success of Snow White, which is a movie that's going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars, and mainly because of her, and because nobody wanted to support her.
Controversy around the film began ever since we learned that there would be no Prince Charming because apparently he kissed her without consent, and also no woman needs a man to rescue her. The movie also used CGI for the 7 dwarfs rather than actors because they thought using real people would be offensive.
But you don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat. Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
And if she hadn't have opened her mouth, I think that this movie might have done well. They might have just been able to ride on the hopium of the movie and some well-cut trailers, and people would have paid to go see it. And then it would have fallen off when people knew it was garbage.
I don't think they're going to buy it. I don't think they're going to watch it. I don't think they're going to like it.
But Rachel Zegler made it so hateable that you really sabotaged and took hundreds of millions of dollars from the studio. I don't know how anyone would ever want to go into business with her.
Rachel is literally the star of a Disney movie, and she acts like she's some sort of victim, and that's the sort of mentality that is just poisoning people's minds. Like, she acts like her life is so bad.
Yeah, we had more dwarfs than we did viewers in most of these theaters. And as you know, there were no dwarfs other than some CGI weird generated version of them.
You know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie. And I believe it only made less than $1 million in China.
Do you know, how hard it is to find an attractive young woman in Hollywood who can act in sin? It's not hard. Who just isn't going to offend half the country.
This truly is the worst casting, maybe, in the history of the film industry.
Disney's Bob Iger says their mission is to entertain, not send messaging as Snow White sales compete for worst performing live-action Disney adaptation ever.
I truly do believe that. There's something wrong with her. She's disturbed. She's unhappy. The reality is she's just not stable, like the majority of people in Hollywood. They're just not stable human beings. I would highly advise that you boycott this film, no matter how much your children love Snow White.
Don't alienate half of the country when you're putting out a product meant to appeal to all. It's the Michael Jordan Republicans buy sneakers. They spent $170 million to make the thing, and it had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
Some of you want us to hire actual dwarf humans, and then we thought we would have CGI magical creatures. How about this? We'll still offend the dwarves, but we'll CGI dwarf.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, how badly did Disney's new Snow White flop after all?
And if you disagree with this sentiment, I don't need your business. Thanks.
I don't need your business. You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it, you didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White.
Right.
You should shut up and do the job.
Since it appears like the only newsworthy topics these days are Disney's latest catastrophe and reputation, we have breaking news. Independent store owners have removed all Snow White merchandise from their shelves for good reason. Let's analyze it. Yes, folks, it seems that the House of Mouse decided it would be a great idea to modernize a classic fairy tale by basically removing all of its cherished components. And who is at the center of this catastrophe, do you know? Rachel Zegler, the self-described a girl of Hollywood, seems to think that the entire Disney Corporation exists just to pay for her hourly dress-wearing expenses.
Every one of the 18 hours I am in the Snow White dress, I expect to get paid. If it's 18 hours, I want 18 hours of pay. I'm sure she got underpaid as a Disney lead actor.
If you think that's over the top, keep watching because this is a more interesting story than a reality show reunion special. Additionally, don't forget to like and subscribe because, let's face it, I couldn't live without your support. Now, let's return to the tea. Although there has long been discussion about Disney's questionable decisions, this time they really went above and beyond. Did they really think that fans wouldn't notice that a significant amount of money was being spent faster than you could say once upon a time? They will be rudely awakened if such is the case. Let's go back for a bit. The original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was not just any animated film. It was the film that launched Walt Disney's legendary empire in 1937. It would be like meddling with Grandma's recipe to adapt such a well-known historical event. If you do it wrong, it will be spoken about at every holiday gathering for the next 50 years.
A few lessons for Disney. Number one, stop cannibalizing all your old IP. Like, it's really bad. It's really bad business. Number two, please stop changing all of the historic plots to actually have meaning to generations of people, to instead become generic woke story about how woman leads revolutionary uprising and she don't need no man.
That risk, though, apparently didn't deter the Disney staff. They gave their approval to a version that critics described as a long film disguised as a series of intermittent TikTok trends. Given how harsh the backlash was, you would think the initiative would be put on hold. Instead, they took the initiative and increased their post-production and PR spin expenditures. Several insiders claim that Disney thought the brand was unfailing on its own. Bulletproof could be an exaggeration, since fans surely found the armor's flaws and blew right through them. Now, let's discuss the monetary carnage. Predictions indicate that Snow White 2025 will rank among Disney's biggest financial catastrophes in recent history.
That story is Snow White. Snow White bombs, breaks records for the lowest live-action remake opening ever. Let me say that again, ever.
I mean, look at this right here. Snow White crashes 70% in second weekend box office.
Every time a new box office projection fails to meet the previous one, the corporate executives can almost be heard wriggling. Early audiences reportedly rushed out of almost empty theaters feeling both confused and angry, as though they had just witnessed a terribly subpar avant-garde art film. The movie's IMDb rating dropped to an astounding 1.6 out of 10, as if the entire internet had decided to—
Zoom in right there, that's it. 163,000 rating, of which it got 1.6, not out of 5. Like, you know, sometimes you go to McDonald's, it's 1.6 out of 5.
Yeah.
1.6 out of 10.
Because once more, look at this right here. This movie has crashed in the second week that it's been out. 70% this movie crashed.
Even cynical social media users, who frequently have no patience for cinematic train wrecks, are saying that the film's direction is so confusing that it's a sign that Disney may finally be losing its magic wand. Speaking of social media, there is a wealth of humorous content available there. The memes? The kiss of the chef. They range from snarky references to the progressive dwarfs who allegedly decided to ghost the film to cross comparisons of the plot to a horribly bad school play.
The movie went over budget, right? Went over about $250 million. They had the whole dwarf midget issue where they decided they weren't going to have any midget actors, right? They were having DEI-inspired magical creatures to replace.
I remember back in 2023 when this was going on and all the little people making videos saying, well, wait, there's so few roles for us in Hollywood. We're being passed over for this. You could have cast seven little
Peter
people.
Dinklage.
In addition to the plot, many are also dissatisfied about the lighting, the tone, and everything else in between. What a complete failure. Now, don't believe that the film is still worth viewing in spite of the low attendance. Viewers claim that the story is so disjointed that it appears as though an excessively drunk editor pieced together 3 unfinished scripts. The action switches to a melancholy dystopian set piece that has nothing to do with this fairy tale when Snow White sings a modern pop anthem. The fantasy prince from the original is no more. Instead, we are given a terrible empowerment storyline that is as improvised as a last-minute appearance.
Her heroine cannot be in love or be saved by a man, the prince, that she's more focused on becoming the leader she was meant to be, as if women in modern-day America must make that choice.
Critics say it's less about celebrating strong female leaders and more about hammering in a message that halts the plot in its tracks. Not to mention the final dance scene, where everyone dances while dressed entirely in white, looking like they just stepped off the set of a cult documentary. Others whispered, "That was 30 seconds of my life I'll never get back," as they left the theater. Disney ought to have realized by now that major alterations to a classic backfire, but it seems like no lesson was conveyed. At the heart of it all is Rachel Zegler, the queen of controversy, or maybe more accurately, the queen of questionable interpretations. Get your popcorn ready because Rachel Zegler is a walking PR time bomb these days. Even if she did exhibit some early potential in earlier musicals, her attitude for Snow White has been as warm as an iceberg. In public, she has called the initial report outdated and made offensive comments about the prince being a stalker.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
The best way to commemorate a heritage, of course, is to continue to make money for Disney while criticizing it. Fans were naturally incensed when she then took things a step further and demanded cash for every hour she spent wearing the well-known Snow White.
I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess. I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
People have real problems and no one gives a if she got paid for 17 instead of 18 on her multi-million-dollar salary, which is not calculated by the...
One outraged commenter summed up the sentiment. If you hate the role so much, why take it? It's a fair question, as Zegler labeled her critics stuck in the past and accused them of being egotistical. Her social media feed quickly descended into a public spat. Because, you know, insulting your potential audience is a great way to build a fan base. While some see the pushback as a deliberate attempt to discredit Zegler, many others think she is just her own worst enemy. She retweeted fans who praised her boldness and referred to everyone else as dinosaurs. If you were hoping to learn how not to handle public relations, the lesson is officially underway. Disney's marketing team is definitely sitting in a corner, sobbing into the script. As if the interpersonal conflict wasn't enough, Snow White has political connotations that are as subtly expressed as a jackhammer. This is not so much a careful blending of modern values into a classic narrative as it is a fire hose blasting out disclaimers about identity, social justice, and everything else you might expect from a dozen mismatched focus groups.
Be a leader as a female and fall in love and be rescued by a prince, like that's incongruous. That's only the left's version of what it means to be a strong woman or female empowerment.
Our rights are on the line, folks. Our reproductive rights. Come on.
Okay, Cheshire Cat.
Go vote blue. And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
Wow, what a scene.
I don't need your business.
So she just encapsulates everything that most of us cannot stand about modern day feminism and the left in general. And how
It's an accomplishment in itself that the left and right are now rolling their eyes. The film is a superb example of the present trend of preaching first and amusement second, according to political commentators. You can almost hear the production meetings. We need more moral lectures, fewer dwarfs, and more empowerment bullet points. Disney's official storyline states that they are celebrating Snow White's resilience. That's right, because everyone has seen the famous scene from the first film where Snow White stops a song to reprimand the crowd for not being politically enlightened. This film will disappoint you more quickly than a subpar 4th of July fireworks show if you were thinking the filmmakers would realize that it takes real talent to blend modern messages with fairy tale charm. According to reports, Disney's corporate headquarters is in full-blown crisis mode.
Disney's Bob Iger says their mission is to entertain, not send messaging as Snow White sales compete for worst performing live action.
There would be a lot of running in circles and terror if a clown car caught fire. There have been reports of last-minute product pullbacks from store shelves, and some employees have referred to the Snow White products as deadly inventory. Oh no, it's a nightmare for finances. The production costs alone soared above $250 million without taking into consideration the marketing campaign, which essentially had to convince us of how engaging this novel method would be. Due to a decline in ticket sales, well-known figures like Bob Iger are now facing the wrath of investors who are as content as a grumpy old troll under a bridge. Insiders speculate that C-level executives might be putting up their resumes in case this catastrophe destabilizes the entire chain of command. Speaking of appending things, some employees started referring to the project as Snow Wrong. That's definitely one of the more polite nicknames people use, to put it bluntly. The original test audiences basically begged them to stop while they were ahead, so maybe they should have listened to them. Now, let's zoom out. The entertainment industry celebrates this implosion with bright lights, lots of noise, and the occasional individual fleeing for their life. The wrong way to handle a historic property is being learned by rival studios. If it can do so poorly, who's to say that prospective remakes won't suffer the same fate as Disney's crown jewel? There are others besides Snow White. This disaster has sparked a broader debate about whether Hollywood's never-ending remake trend ought to end. People are coming to understand that fancy computer graphics cannot hide a bad script or an actress who publicly denigrates the source material she is hired to bring to life. It is to be hoped that studios would be a little more cautious in the future when it comes to recreating famous classics. So, what is the moral of the Snow White story? To begin with, you might not want to ruin a traditional fairy tale in an effort to persuade others on social media. Second, especially if you want the original fan base to see your film, you might want to rethink your intention to anger them if you're Rachel Zegler. Because, you know what? They don't believe it, physically and figuratively. This catastrophe is proving to be Disney's most significant lesson, despite the questionable creative decisions and humiliating mistakes. Rumor has it that there will be emergency re-edits, hush-hush marketing changes, and possibly even legal threats if the bad comments continue. But let's be honest, the harm has already been done. The once dominant juggernaut stumble has the internet in a frenzy. There might be more shocks in store, though. Sources hint at scenes that were cut in a last-ditch attempt to appease irate fans and the potential for legal action if the finger-pointing gets too personal. It's a typical tale. The big studio undervalues the impact of a passionate fan base, the celebrity speaks too much, and the breakdown becomes the stuff of Hollywood legends. Given how rapidly this train is sinking, new drama could emerge at any time, so if you want to receive every sensational update, subscribe right immediately. Thank you all for listening, and remember that not all fairy tales end happily, especially when conceit, a bad script, and a marketing team that is motivated by denial come together to form a perfect storm. If Disney wants to recover from this catastrophe, they would need more than just a magic mirror. They might need a reality check. Please click the like button and share your ideas in the comment section. We'd love to hear them, whether they're favorable or bad. After all, the next plot twist might be even more absurd than the all-white final dance, if that's even possible. We'll see if the corporate magicians can make a difference, or if this version is doomed to remain obscure, like that unappealing theme park show that nobody wants to eat. Till the next time, stay in touch, exercise caution, and stay informed only on